Now, for decades, the UK's nuclear waste has been stored at Sellafield in Cumbria, but as the material piles up, the site is running out of space.
Scientists are now looking at how it can be moved elsewhere and isolated safely for future generations. Our science correspondent Victoria Gill has this report.
On trains, locked inside heavy steel containers, our nuclear waste is transported to Sellafield. This is the main site in the UK that handles and stores the unstable, hazardous products of the reactions that drive our nuclear power stations. As we watched through metre-thick, lead-lined glass, remotely operated robots extracted rods of used nuclear fuel. Still hot and highly radioactive, they're put into storage containers.
Each of the containers that you can see in these giant ponds is a container of old nuclear fuel, and it stays here for 180 days, cooling, and the water acts as a kind of radiation shield.
Eventually, this high-level radioactive waste goes into storage on site. And Sellafield also handles contaminated material from inside nuclear power plants that are being shut down. Concrete is a radiation barrier, and locked inside these boxes is metal and other substances from old nuclear facilities. It's a legacy of hazardous waste that's been piling up here since the 1980s.
Are you still dealing with that?
Yeah, and we'll be dealing with that for a number of decades to come. Our programme at Sellafield in total is more than 100 years into the future.
In recent years, leaks in ageing facilities here have had to be plugged. And as the site operates 24 hours a day dealing with the waste of past and present, its running costs exceed £2 billion a year.
As you can see, the site's very congested, so if we don't have a permanent solution for the waste, we could run out of space on the site for building interim storage facilities.
So if it can't stay here permanently, what is the plan? This is material that requires almost unimaginably long-term storage.
This material is really quite hazardous, and it remains hazardous for 100,000 years.
Scientists use non-toxic chemical copies of nuclear waste to test ways to make the material safe.
The fuel pellets we dissolve up into what you can see in this bottle here, this green goo, highly radioactive liquid. From a storage point of view, that's not a very safe thing because it could leak out of the storage drums.
So you make it into a solid?
Exactly.
Here, researchers demonstrate how the material is baked into solid glass to stabilise it before it's stored.
So at the moment, the waste is being stored above ground at Sellafield in safe and secure buildings. But eventually, we need to isolate it from future populations or even civilisations. That's the timescale we're looking at.
In Finland, they've already built a vast bunker deep underground. Hundreds of metres of rock acts as a permanent barrier. And the government plans to build a similar geological disposal facility here in the UK. It's going to take around 10 years to find somewhere in England or Wales with the right rocks and willing local residents. 2 possible locations have been ruled out, leaving a short list of 3. In one area, there have been protests. In Thedlethorpe, Lincolnshire, some residents are concerned this would be a blight that would threaten the tourist industry in their seaside town. The other 2 are in Cumbria, one here in mid-Copeland.
You can see Sellafield right over my shoulder here. It's minutes from this community and a huge employer.
I think because we're used to Sellafield, we'd probably get used to a depository a lot better than other parts of the country. I think there'd be a lot of resistance if you took it somewhere where they haven't got that sort of nuclear awareness.
It's fine, absolutely fine, yeah, you know. We've lived here all our lives, it doesn't bother us.
Brings jobs to local people, doesn't it? And that's what we're all about, really.
So what I'm going to show you on the next slide...
But thoroughly assessing each site and continuing to consult with the communities is a long process.
There's been surveys done and the geology's looking, you know, as if it's doable. And we're also engaging with the communities to share that with them. And at some point in the future, this community, and this community only, will decide if it's right or wrong for them.
Meanwhile, at Sellafield, the waste continues to pile up. With new nuclear power plants part of the government's low-carbon energy plan, there'll be more to come, and it will all need to be locked away permanently. Victoria Gill, BBC News.